r/AskReddit. Serious, when was a time you interacted with a seemingly normal person, but later found out that they were not? Back in the late 90s, I had a friend from work whose brother hung out with us a few times when we'd go out. He seemed normal. A few years later, he allegedly, his family maintains he's innocent, set off a couple of bombs at biotech companies as part of some extreme animal rights group he'd gotten mixed up in. He managed to evade the FBI and disappeared. It being shortly after 9/11, the FBI put him in their top 10 for a while and America's Most Wanted did a profile on him. As far as I know, he's never been caught. I've seen his picture a couple of times in movies when some cop is searching a database of suspects and it's always a weird blast from the past moment. FBI agents admit that they cannot prove San Diego has ties to the emails, but believe he has ties to the group that sent them. I also learned there were no casualties and only property damage. Honestly, I'm not sure what the correct protocol to this type of stuff is, but calling him a terrorist and putting him on the top 10 FBI most wanted list seems like an extreme over-exaggeration. Especially with the lack of evidence connecting him to the emails or even confirmation that the emails were from this vegan extremist group. I don't know, this just seems strange to me. I worked at Circuit City as a teenager and was helping someone looking at TVs. My boss called me over and said he needed me up front to help at checkout. Thought it was weird because there wasn't a line, but whatever, turns out the guy I was helping was Drew Peterson, who has since been convicted of murder. This was back when he was just a suspect, but my boss recognized him from the news and didn't want to compromise my safety. For those who might not know the story, cop's third wife dies under mysterious circumstances, drowned in a dry bathtub. He gets away scot-free. Cop's fourth wife disappears under heinously mysterious circumstances. It's revealed he's a serial cheater who keeps getting caught, divorced, marries the mistress, cycle continues. One surviving ex-wife comes forward and says he used to threaten to kill her and make it look like an accident because cop. The thin blue line breaks their protection racket and the investigation into third wife's death is reopened. He is charged and convicted in that case, as well as charged and convicted of soliciting the murder of the state's attorney who dared to bring the investigations forward. The fourth wife's body, Stacey Peterson, has yet to be found. She went missing in 2007. If you're ever hiking in Illinois and see a blue barrel, it's believed that may be what she was buried in. Thanks for taking the time to write this up. Her death was initially ruled an accidental drowning by a coroner's jury that included a police officer who personally knew Peterson and assured the other jurors that he was a good man who would never hurt his wife. Wow, how in the hell was that allowed to happen? The last part about the blue barrel gave me the chills. I was quite bothered as well. Just imagine metal detecting and finding that stuff of nightmares. That was solid of your boss. Seriously. That's a real boss right there. Good change from the power trip thread I was just reading. I was in a reenactment group when I was younger, along with my family and others. Two of the dads were like the head honchos running the show, and they did it wonderfully. We were a part of this group for years, then come to find out that one of those head honchos had been sexually abusing his daughter since she was 7. She was 15 when it came out. He only did 3 years. I hate that the math works out that they only kept him locked up until she was 18. Depending on how long it took to get to trial/sentencing, she might have been 19. I don't know that makes a difference or anything better, but at least it'd be slightly less symbolic. 3 years, WTF, what country is this? Surely crap like that should constitute a life sentence. Imagine getting 3 years for aping your daughter, but carrying a substance that you intend to use on yourself will get you life in prison. Fucking exactly. A person can completely ruin a child's life and get a slap on the wrist, but heaven forbid you want to get high, then it's real main time. If that's not the perfect example of how fucked up modern society is, then I don't know what is. It's really disturbing to me how little importance we place on the mental health and well-being of children. Think about how different this world would be. Edit. Word. Unfortunately, most countries do not care about survivors of sexual violence. That's fucked, it really is. What a tragedy combined with a miscarriage of justice. Worked with a woman for 2 years at a child-related business, perfectly normal mother type with multiple children. While we worked together, she was on vacation, took her youngest child, 2Y/O, out on a hike, and stabbed him in the chest with a chef's knife. She then called 911 and frantically reported they had been mugged. The police knew something was up, because she also said nothing had been taken. Child miraculously survived, and it came out later that an affair she was having had been exposed that night before the stabbing. Turns out the child was a product of the affair. Talk about misplaced blame. Edit. I should have added she was convicted, spent 10 years in prison, no parole, and was released after the full 10. She has since passed away, within a year of her release. I don't know her cause of death. That's an evil lady. The lady downvoted you. That poor kid. Imagine being stabbed by your own mother. How could he trust anybody in his life ever again? I knew a guy whose mother once tried to sell him for crack. The world is a fucked up place. I felt bad, because I felt like I didn't play with my child enough today. I feel a bit better now. Many years ago I lived in Cancun, and met a very charming man who ended up dating one of my friends. We would go out in his car, to go to the beach, out for dinner, and whatnot. My kids would even come along once in a while. He was always in a good mood, all smiles, though later I discovered his father had been kidnapped and never found. One day he told us he was sure he was going to end up being kidnapped too, probably tortured and killed. I never understood what was going on. I moved back to my hometown, and some months later I saw in the newspaper that 3 tortured bodies had been found on the side of the road from Cancun to Merida. One was my friend, and I was in complete shock when I found out who he was. I could not believe it. He was a big hitman from the Zeta cartel, was involved in all sorts of criminal activity including trafficking of children. He was the bodyguard of a very known child predator and CP producer in Cancun. I cannot stop thinking how I could have been kidnapped along with this man just like the other 2 were, just for being there at the wrong time. My children were in danger, and I didn't even know. It is scary AF. WTF. Who would actually protect someone involved in CP? I'm glad you and your kids made it out okay. This man was involved in human trafficking of both women and children. He was a proper hitman with no morals. What I found shocking is how nice he seemed, always joking and smiling. My friend, his girlfriend disappeared. I think she went into hiding because she was terrified. Well, it's better she gets witness protection than the alternative being that something worse happened. Can you get witness protection for just knowing or dating a bad apple? I thought that was for when you testified against someone whom would likely retaliate. We had a friend of the family that would always talk to us about going to his summer camp. Cool guy. The only thing was my dad did not like to send us away on summer and would rather have us work with him at his store. Turns out the guy was a pedo and would molest and take pics of the camp kids. I suspect/wonder about your dad having a gut feeling about this guy. Around me there is a very popular swim club with a day camp. The owner's adult son was found guilty of possessing/trading child pornography. People I know continued to pay membership dues to this club and send their kid to the camp. These parents said that there was no evidence that his predilection for sexual satisfaction through small children in any way transferred over to his role as an administrator at a day camp, swim club where children are changing in washrooms and walking around in swimsuits. Personally, I refuse to let my kids go there. Wow. WTF is wrong with those parents? Having been through a similar situation in which sexual abuse was brought to light and people stayed loyal, I think some people genuinely convince themselves that nothing happened or that a person they know wouldn't be capable of that. I actually talked about it with a trauma therapist who told me a lot of people surrounding rapists/sex abusers will live in denial because it's a lot easier than facing that they were friends of someone capable of that, which might reveal things about themselves, or that they may have put someone in a position to have been a victim, like probably the children who attended the day camp in the ops comment. I chatted with a random guy in the laundry room of our apartment complex. He was nice, friendly, outgoing kind of fellow. Skinny thing. A few weeks later I ran into him and his girlfriend on the elevator. I said, "Hey Mike, how's it going?" He proceeded to tell me how it was not going well for him. He'd been evicted from our apartment complex because he had like 8 people living with him, had been stabbed while he was on the bus coming home from an AA meeting, was recovering from the stab wound when his girlfriend, the one who was with him in the elevator at that very moment, broke up with him. His side piece was